What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. This is Web Dev Journey, and today we're going to be talking about a new series. We're actually into a new series, and this is a somewhat of a more advanced series, right? And more complex series, obviously. Now we're dealing with microservices. Woo! I know it really is exciting once you understand how they work and what they are, and once you know how to do them, it's exciting. If you don't know what the hell is going on, then it might be a topic where you're just like, man, I hate this. And that's how I felt when I first started microservices. But obviously there are some, what are called, benefits and drawbacks, and we'll talk about those. But anyways, let's get into microservices. And I'm going to tell you the basic principles for these. Now, so there are a few best practices when developing microservice architectures. All right. One microservice should only do one task, or at least be responsible for one concern, like dealing with all customer data on an application. It should be possible to develop and deploy a microservice completely independent from all other parts of an application. And microservices should communicate using standard HTTP methods. Now, of course, there are a few benefits for using microservices, because that's the whole reason why people are using it in the first place, correct? So first of all, new developers don't have to understand the whole application now, and services can be developed and deployed by completely independent teams, which is great. It really is. That's I like this one. I like this benefit more than the others because no one's bothering you like, hey, how does the application work and all that stuff. Anyways, they just have to negotiate contracts how microservices have to communicate with each other. And services can be developed with the language that does a given task best. So you can use Go for some microservices and Node for others, and maybe even Java for a set of other microservices. It doesn't really matter because they're independent. Now, if a service fails and if it's done correctly, not the whole application has to fail. So those are some benefits that come with this. And with benefits, there's also drawbacks. All right. So there are possible code redundancies. This means that you might use some modules or some data structure and you have to use it throughout many microservices. And there it might be tempting to just copy paste logic all over the place. It's also hard to roll out new versions because if those microservices are dependent on each other, you have to first roll out a whole set of new microservices, and they also have to follow new contracts that maybe are rolled out with this new version. And they're harder to test, especially harder to test on its own as compound on its own, because if one microservice depends on its other, and you're the one writing the test, you have to basically mock the other microservice to test the one microservice, which is very, very annoying. And this is the major thing that is the most heartbreaking thing, why it's so complex, right? This is actually moved to the network layer now, all right? So things that were before tightly coupled in an application are now distributed over the network, and it sometimes goes wrong. And if something goes wrong on the network layer, this also affects the application. And this also means that a microservice application is basically harder to monitor end to end. Now, for our application, we will be applying these best practices, and we will also take measures that if one service is degraded, the application will still be functioning. We call this resilience. Now, to talk about the application we're going to be building, in fact, we already built it. It's actually the very first series. Well, you already know. It's the simple website series. And let me pull that up right now. It's this little website. It's the very first website that got us into this Nodejs and Express and all that stuff, where you have the home, the speakers, the feedback, and nothing's new here. It's just literally everything's the same. We don't have no login because it'll just make the series a little bit longer to do that as a microservice. But at least you'll have the concepts, the basic knowledge to actually do that. Now, this is the application we're going to turn into a microservice application. Right now, it's a monolithic application, meaning that everything's in just one little spot. Where in microservices, obviously you want to split those things. So let me go back to the right here. No, right here. This one. So this is what we have right now. And you already know the application, it's basically consists of three conceptual parts. The main application that does all the heavy lifting and template rendering, content related to speakers, and content relating to displaying and posting feedback. Now we're deciding that we want all those components to be entities on their own. So this is what we want, okay? And I'm gonna talk about this exactly, all right? So we move the speakers and feedback, services outside of the main application. And in between, we will add a service registry that will know where to find those services in our infrastructure. And that will also provide some load balancing, which is a little nice touch to microservices. And additionally, we will be adding a communication layer, our queue down here, to the main application. Or sorry, not the queue. This one right here, the block, the communication layer. This is right to the main application that will provide some resilience against outages. And lastly but not least, we will be adding an additional level of abstraction by using a queue to send feedbacks through it instead of posting data directly to the respective services. Now you might be wondering how this communication block actually works, where you provide some resilience, like I said, against outages, and this will actually be achieved by circuit breaking and caching. If you don't know what caching or circuit breaking is, just look those up. They're pretty common. You can just look it up and figure it out. It's not that hard. But anyways, this is what we're going to be doing to our application, this application right here, okay? So I hope you stay tuned for this. This is a new series, and it's all about microservices. So thank you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.